Hello, my friends, relatives, and esteemed colleagues. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about tonsils and tonsil stones. Now, what is this? Mostly as a children, we have experienced sometimes you cough and something comes from the throat and it's really kind of cheesy stuff and it smells awfully. Well, this is what the question was. Why some people suffer from this even when they grow up? And what is this? Why is this happening? Well, again, if you ask doctor, we will answer always the way we are being told. You know, this is obstruction happens and tonsils hold the debris and it can calcify in there and that's what it is. And it smells bad, it has bacteria in it, sulfur, and that's why the bad smell comes out. Well, but how come some people do experience it? Some people don't. And usually children are more prone to this. But also, prior to having those stones, we tend to have inflammation going on in our tonsils. So to elaborate on this, we first have to know more or less what tonsils are. We know that they are on the side of the throat, but there are also some in the tongue and the adenoids which are on the upper roof of your palate. Well, as a children, they are way more sensitive and they are larger. And many children suffer from reoccurring throat inflammations, tonsillitis, can even bring fever. And when I was a small child, I was, I don't know, 4 years old, when the brain surgeons of our science, medical science, in this case otolaryngologists, they decided that because of my reoccurrence of the swollen tonsils, the best is just to take them out, and they ripped them out. I don't want to describe what horror that was because they do it live. I don't know if they give anesthetic or not. It hurt like a hell. Nurse holds you while the doctor goes and pulls them out. I mean, we're talking about mangala. I was 4 years old. I'll never forget it. Well, they grew back. What are tonsils? Why do we have them? Why do doctors think that it's okay to get rid of them? Because number one, the science is not clear on it. Of course it's not clear because we are not really taught science. We are told script of what those who control us want us to know, and compartmentalize us into these boxes and bingo, this is what you need to know, but don't worry about the details, and this is basically how it works, and this is how you treat it. Well, because of this, doctors are lost. They don't continue investigating, and even if they try to, if you use the indoctrinated knowledge, you are not going to be able to go forward. Why not? Because number one, we are being told that inflammation is caused by this fight between gen and antigen, antigen. And where does the gen come? Through outside. It's usually some kind of a bacteria, some kind of a living organism that is then causing, actually, it could be foreign protein, but not necessarily. It could be any kind of a toxic stuff. And once when you think that inflammation is some kind of a battle that has to be suppressed, and you suppress it because the battle is most likely bacteria, and because you find Staphylococcus and other bacteria always around the area, that is the culprit, that's what we gotta destroy, so antibiotic, everything calms down. Why? Not because bacteria was destroyed. It is because of high toxicity of the medication that basically puts the body in defense mode, and it locks itself in. Because, as I explained, inflammation is nothing more than forced hydration. So, for cells, when cell does not want to hydrate because blood is toxic, but cell is critically acidic and cannot hold electric charge, so the tissue actually cannot perform, well, body has a solution, override, to basically inflame the area, to increase the pressure of the liquid in this organ, and by this, it is some water, some plasma is being squirted into the cells because it's higher pressure. So the cells then can utilize this water for their own cleansing, flushing, whatever, depending on what was the trigger. Because there are different triggers to inflammation. Again, I spoke about inflammation, but I have to kind of return a little bit to explain what is it all about, otherwise we miss it. So normally, as we are growing up, as a baby, we suck on mother's milk. Nothing new is happening, so everything is fine. But as we get off the breast and we go and start experimenting with the food, especially because our parents are misguided by their doctors, and they are misguided by the scientists, and scientists are misguided by order of compliance. You either say this or we destroy you. So misguided knowledge is being pushed out. So child immediately is put on the wrong diet. And as wrong things start coming in, what happens? Body has protective channels, protective zones. The skin is protection. And skin has layer of, on the surface, epithelium has surface of dead cells, and then cholesterol. So it's hard to penetrate and to actually go, you have to go through pores. Pores are usually full with cholesterol, so nothing can really penetrate so easily through the skin. Skin absorbs much easier and much faster through mucosal tissue. Because mucosal tissue, the cells are protected only with mucus that this tissue produces, which is basically water with protein. So now when we eat something, whatever we put in our body has to be analyzed for safety. We know that we have lymphatic system. Why? Because whatever was touching skin, whatever was absorbed to the skin, has to be checked. So it ends up in a returning lymph that then goes in through nodes, is being checked before it is allowed to go back into vena cava and back into bloodstream. So the antidotes can be made or destroyed the toxic material. This is why lymph nodes are filled with lymphocytes, with T cells. Well, the same is with tonsils. So tonsils are actually lymphatic organs, but not in that way that would filter lymph, but more in a way of thymus. Also in children, thymus is large, and then it kind of shrinks. Because as a children, we are adjusting this robot to present environment. And the environment is dictated not only by nature, but by everything that we are immersed into by our parents. Whatever lotion, whatever water we are in touch with, whatever we eat, so different foods, it all has to be checked. So what comes through the skin goes through lymph nodes. What comes through the mouth, bingo! You have here the lymphoid, we call them lymphoid organs because they kind of work more like a thymus. So basically, they check what's coming in and give a signal preparing the body for for adjustments. It's nothing about fighting, it's all about adjusting. And this is why tonsils are not smooth organs. They'll look like they're full of craters. We call them crypts. And the juices, whatever we chew, whatever passes through the throat, well, it gets there, it penetrates. It's like a sponge. And it's being analyzed. And if something is toxic right away, this is why you have here a lot of T cells, a lot of lymph, a lot of white blood cells, T cells. And they basically destroy and take apart whatever they deem not to be okay, foreign proteins and stuff that comes in, but also they send the messages. And this is why tonsils are very well vascularized. There are 5 arteries that are feeding toxin with blood. Why? Because they have to be well hydrated, because they basically are like a first line of defense of the body from the stuff that we ingest. Also what we respirate, when we breathe, this also goes through. And of course, if we have 5 arteries, strong, a lot of blood coming in, well, that blood comes out, so we have also veins, pretty elaborate, end up in jugular vein and go back for cleansing. Now, whenever we are exposed to more toxins, there is more work and more blood is needed. As we are getting dehydrated, well, the work is being made more difficult. And children, because they are just getting their body acclimated to all these new foods, new toxins, well, the tonsils are much more active, they are larger, and they need huge amount of blood to basically keep rinsing themselves and to be able to do the job. But now children, the worse we eat, the more our blood becomes toxic. Well, it is more difficult for tonsils to do their work. So you have more toxic blood and you have huge amount of toxins coming through your mouth because you are acclimating your body to eat something that it is not built for. All these carbohydrates, so, and plants. So there's a lot of work to be done. Especially children that suffer from tonsillitis. They suffer from other, usually respiratory problems, like asthma, usually have diarrhea, they are weaker. Why? Because they are more toxic, they have lower already levels of plasma, they are eating inferior foods, they have to keep cleansing, they don't drink enough water with salt, they don't get enough salt, they are drinking Pepsi Cola, Coca-Cola, all kinds of juices and fruit juices and teas and that, but not water, and they are not getting enough salt because we are being told, no salt. So the plasma level in the blood are dropping and tonsils are huge, especially in children, because there is a lot of activity. And as I explained, when you have an active organ and you are getting toxic blood, well, the first thing that is going to start having problem is the organ that is most active, which is, in this case, going to be tonsils in children. Now you may say, well, what about heart? What about brain? Well, they have a special protection. They have a capillary system and mostly supplied at the end by filtration through these capillaries, part of lymphatic flow. So it's much cleaner. Tonsils, no. You don't have this lymphatic flow because it is organ which is much more thymus-like, not like a lymph node, although it has a similar job. So what happens? There is the cells become acidic. More water is needed. So inflammation kicks in because the cells have to be able to wash off, and they cannot wash off the stuff because they don't have water. So they don't have water because the blood is toxic. Cells do not accept it. So inflammation is frequently then being done, and enlarged tonsils, swollen, become painful because they create pressure on sensory nerves. Children usually don't have a big problem with that because eventually you know, the inflammation goes down and pop. And you start, I used to call them plugs, but, you know, they are known under the name of tonsil stones. Now, why they occur? Because remember, these are these all crypts inside, channels, deep channels, and when there is a lack of hydration, lack of flushing, lack of flow of plasma, you create less of mucus. There is not big cleansing going on, and you can get stuff stuck in those crypts. And it accumulates there, because whenever you have a swelling, well, the orifices, there's a pressure on orifice, so it's a pressure on the top of a crypt. It squeezes the opening, it doesn't open well. So the crypt inside grows because the stuff gets accumulated there. There's a bacteria on, there is a toxin that came in, okay? Plus the blood is doing the filtration, but now it can't. So it's really becoming problematic. And as soon as inflammation is done, when starts normalizing, now the openings of a crypt get softer, get larger. They open up, and the gunk from inside of a crypt, these stones, start going out. And sometimes you can kind of feel it, but and all of a sudden it just pops out. Now, in grown-ups, usually we don't have this problem because our tonsils are not that active. They are much smaller, body is adjusted already to whatever we are doing, so there is much less need for it. This is why even our thymus gets smaller, it shrinks. Because more or less, body now knows where it lives, what is the ambient, everything is adjusted, so the small changes occasionally that happen, they can be taken care of by whatever remains. So, as we get older, if our blood is very toxic, our cells dehydrated, and we eat wrong food, we get toxins. Forget about bacteria. It has nothing to do with bacteria. It's toxin. Stuff that should not be there. So body has to kind of inspect it, make a decision what to do, how to proceed, how to prepare the body to deal with this. Prepare yourself, adjusting to the environment that we are creating through the food that we eat and stuff that we drink, air we breathe, because it all affects tonsils. So what happens? The cells become more and more dehydrated, and when the garbage comes in, it cannot be flushed. So more toxic is, the more toxic blood you have, and the more you are dehydrated on cellular level, and you continue poisoning yourself, well, you are going to have problem, because same thing is going to happen. You won't be able to produce the mucus to flush it out. You are not flushing it, so what happens? It starts irritating you. The toxin that is there. You get bacteria. Bacteria tries to solve the problem, try to munch it up. But sometimes, more food there is, the more bacteria grows. So if you have visible bacterial action there, well, there is a plenty food for them to eat, because you are not cleansing the stuff. It's stationary, because you don't produce enough mucus. You don't have enough water to liquefy things and to push them out. So they start accumulating. And you don't even have to have inflammation, because passively, little by little, this is growing. The orifice is not big enough for it to come out, because basically it's all dehydrated. You dehydrate cells, they shrink, so the orifice shrinks from dehydration. You don't have enough water now to support mucus production, so it dilutes the stuff and pushes it out. It gets stuck in there, grows and grows, and it may start creating a pressure. It may be cause of your dry cough. It may cause irritation while swallowing. Very seldom it's painful, but it could even become painful. And again, body may, if it's becoming extremely dry and acidic on cellular level within tonsils, it may even cause forced hydration, inflammation of tonsils, tonsillitis. Now, of course, doctors always blame the bacteria. They see the white stuff. Okay, well, antibiotic, antibiotic, antibiotic. Well, when you're in this stage, antibiotic will not help you, because it is not the bacteria. And even closing system, well, we are making even a worse thing. So after the antibiotic wears off, you may actually get inflammation. So you get more antibiotic. Some people go for surgery because the stuff is becoming larger and larger, because script is widening, but the orifice is too small to get it out. It becomes harder. As it becomes drier, it becomes harder, so cannot be even squeezed. It's not cheesy anymore. It becomes harder. It becomes like a stone. It could even be visible as a white buildup underneath the skin of the tonsil. So surgery should be done. Well, how to prevent this? Simple. Clean your blood. Hydrate yourself with plasma, water and sea salt. So this way, the area can be properly lubricated, enough mucus can be done, and it clears itself by itself. Your cells are going to be well hydrated, so there is not going to be any need for inflammation, and you will not have any tonsillitis. At the same time, correct your diet. So this way you are not poisoning yourself, so tonsils have less work to do. I remember I used to get these soft tonsil stones. Last one, maybe when I was already in medical school, well, probably even after that. Maybe when I was already practicing in New York, I don't remember, because once when I cleansed my blood and changed my diet, I never, ever, ever had inflamed tonsil or the bad breath coming from this accumulation of these tonsil stones or tonsil stone itself. Yeah, a little sensitivity during what we call the flu. Well, now, why during the flu you may have tonsillitis? Remember, there are 5 big blood vessels, arteries, supplying tonsils with blood. There is a lot of activity. And if this blood is toxic, then it cannot do its job. The cells become acidic, And what is happening? What is flu? Flu is symptom, or bunch of symptoms that occur during increased blood toxicity and blood cleansing. So obviously, if your blood becomes more toxic than usual, then what was minor problem that you got used to now becomes a larger problem that you can feel. And since tonsils are always active organ, so they will be drier on cellular level, increased blood toxicity makes it even worse. So what happens, that signal is being given that tonsils need cleansing, and for this they need a plasma, and the forced hydration goes into action, inflammation. They start inflaming, not because what you ate, but because of a toxic blood and toxic cells. And in this process, again, body is always trying to eliminate toxins the fastest possible way. So when you eat something and it ends up in your intestines, it is being absorbed, but then if it is deemed to be toxic, it is going to be pushed right back into intestine to come out with the excrement. So many toxins don't even enter blood, and even if being absorbed into the intestine itself, they will be expelled through intestine out, through mucus, cleansing. It goes automatically. Well, same is with tonsils. But again, if the cells are dry, they cannot really cleanse. So they become more acidic, so inflammation is created, and now with increased pressure or forced hydration, they can kind of help themselves. But we always suppress every inflammation. This is how doctors are actually working against the autopilot of our health. We are perfect machines. Body knows what to do. Our doctors is our genetic system. It always adjusts to present situation to help. Of course, the help is very often limited because we don't drink, we don't hydrate correctly. So no matter what the body does, well, it does not receive what it needs. This is why the self-healers protocol is geared in such a way to provide the body with exactly what the body needs to do the self-healing and self-maintenance. So whatever screw up we do by eating wrong stuff, the body can correct. But it needs water, it needs salt, and the more problem you have, the less salt they allow you to have and less water to take. Strange? It's by design. Doctors have no clue. I had no clue that what I was told in a school was actually to create a disease, to lock the toxins in the body and force it to show symptoms of disease. And then we'll give them fancy names, and now we are experts because we recognize by symptoms, we recognize disease, but we don't have a hell of a clue why they came. What's the culprit? Well, now you know. So, if you suffer from tonsillitis. If you're a child that suffers from tonsillitis, change the diet and let him drink plenty of plasma. Let him go through diarrhea. Let him develop diarrhea so it cleanses the blood as fast as possible, and it will allow cleansing of tonsils as well. Large accumulation of poison, it is going to be expelled right there into the throat. So you can cough it out, or you swallow it and it comes out the other way. But it creates less problem than if it will be reabsorbed into the blood and then had to go through liver and through kidneys and then possibly through intestines to be pushed through the wall as blood is being cleansed, through glomerule being pushed out. So it's way more complicated. I have explained, if you have a tumor or something that your body wants to get rid of, it will find the fastest, easiest way, even if it means to open a crack and push it out through the hole. We call it fistula. Okay? So, you step on a glass. It penetrates your skin, but you cannot find it because you cannot see it. It's transparent, now gets bloody, it's part of the tissue. There's no way you can find it. But as you are walking, if it's pushing, you can feel it is there. But all of a sudden, the area starts getting red, swelling, then like a pus in the center comes, and puff, and piece of glass comes out. Body finds the way how to expulse it without it having to go through the system and go through the kidneys. Same is with tumor, cancer, breast cancer. Once when it starts healing, instead of taking it apart little by little and running it through lymphatic system and running it through the liver and kidneys, body simply opens up, start draining, and then the cancer is being pushed out. It looks ugly, but it's being pushed out. It's no more in the body. Same is with these stones. Instead of reabsorbing them, the body, conscious, smart body, decides to simply push it right out where it came from. But for all of this, it needs lubricant, water, plasma. And if we are low on plasma, pow, it cannot do it. That's usually in older people, in grown-ups. Stones are rarity, but when they happen, they are mostly stuck. You just cannot get rid of them. Why? Because you are poorly hydrated. So understand it. Again, protocol, self-healers protocol in action. Hydration. And stop poisoning yourself. Thank you for listening. Till next time. Namaste.